Well, hello everyone and welcome. Telestax is pleased to host our ResCom One Marketplace IQ series, where we highlight our partners and the benefits they bring. Today we're featuring Midori Interactive. Midori is a valued ResCom One Marketplace partner, and I'm pleased to introduce Midori's CEO, Noah Falco. Now, before I hand over today's webinar to Noah, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items for today's live event. All participants are in listen-only mode for the duration of the webinar, but do feel free to chat any questions in the Q&A box located in the left-hand bottom of your screen. Of course, this webinar is being recorded, and replays will be available on the Telestax website within about 24 hours following our live broadcast. At this point, I'd like to turn today's web conference over to Noah. Noah, please go ahead.
Thanks, Maria, and welcome everyone. We at Midori Interactive are really excited to be a part of the ResCom One Marketplace, so thank you so much. So our goal during this presentation today is to really impress upon you some lessons we've learned during our own clients' messaging journeys and how we've helped them solve some of those issues. While we explain how these key points work out, I'm going to ask you to take some notes during the presentation. I'll be specific and give you time to take that note. And as well, we're going to do some polling today. And we do have some polling that's going to be live. And that being said, we're going to give about 15 seconds during that time frame. So make sure that you keep your fingers limber. So when we discuss these points, they're really points that are going to help you accelerate your journey. And some of these are going to be security related, and others might help you solve some internal issues. In some cases, maybe even better yet, solve some of your customers' communications issues. And imagine increasing revenue and lowering churn, or really getting back to the basics of consistent customer service. And I did want to do a quick shout out to all that did participate in the pre-webinar survey we had sent out. And again, don't worry, if you didn't participate in that survey, we have a few questions that are going to really help drive and determine where you are on your messaging journey. So let's begin and learn a little bit more about how Midori Interactive assists its clients and hopefully do the same for you today. So Midori is a next generation communications services platform, and we support carriers and large enterprises. So basically we support customers with many subset end customers. So if you think of Midori as a private label messaging communications bridge, what we do is connect to diverse messaging channels, SMS included, with automated answers, or in some case, connected to back-end process. Midori supports clients with large existing customer bases who are really reviewing how to take advantage of that existing base and increase revenues. Midori does this through providing a private label solution, as mentioned, managed in the cloud. This highly secure infrastructure and encrypted network is accessible to the end consumers through a very easy-to-use, intuitive web portal. We offer Midori, as we do most things around here, as an end-user supported solution. Midori supports multi-channel messaging as a SaaS solution on the front end and is able through webhooks to connect to back-end systems. And we've deployed this within the AWS cloud. This allows Midori Interactive to support auto-scaling globally using a ton of our secret sauce. Our goal is to enable clients with a consumer-facing private label portal that provides the end user with a seamless way to add bot services and technologies, and for the operator or enterprise to monetize messaging technologies. So just think of Midori as an end-to-end network solution for bots. And when we work with our clients, we embrace the methodology of peering directly through their support challenges to their customer support challenges. By providing simple tools for SMB-type end users to self-manage their service, it's a home run. And while offering advanced users at the same time access to our rich enterprise API set. This strategy solves many, if not all, integration challenges for our clients. And it immediately allows them to generate new revenue in the digital economy who really face challenges typically in monetizing technology. So who am I? Well, my name is Noah Falco, and I've been around, as you can see, in telecom so long, my headshot was only available in black and white at the time. And I would only admit, really, truly, to those that don't know me, that I've been really in the industry for about 20 years in the advanced communication side of it. And as being a part of this industry, I've been a visible telecom delegate within the messaging industry groups over the past several years. And this allows me to stay involved on the political side to protect evolving technology and truly being an activist for those who use it. Due to this activity, I've even recently been asked to lead a new nonprofit that will better align all global messaging industry participants. And I guess it's being related to being born and raised in Boston. You know, we're never afraid to throw a little tea around to start a revolution. But, you know, really on a serious note, this type of dual participation drives me daily to find new ways to use technology to assist us in engaging and also to protect those rights within that larger political world to do so. So when you approach your journey, make sure that you're aware of those industry politics that might impact your business model, or at least partner with those who are. If not, you're going to jeopardize your success. So moving on with our journey, we've really come a long way in communications. You know, if you look back in time, we started with snail mail, really. And then we've evolved from there. And the goal of this presentation is to also help you better understand how important messaging is, not just to customer service, but to your brand reputation. It wasn't even more than 40 plus years ago that our primary form was regular traditional snail mail. And now our electronic mail is near instant globally. On this slide, just look at the fact. 60%, if not more by this time, of your existing customers have already used texting chatbots. And this changes daily. It's so dynamic. And if you're like me and my kids or, you know, people's grandkids, they've all already moved away from calls to messaging as the only way to reach them. And, you know, if they're also your future customers or even your existing customers, why haven't you adopted messaging yet? That just doesn't make sense. So let's pause there and let's make sure you take a note on this. Evolve your view or your competition will. Automation can be added to augment any type of service that you do or offer, and keep it as simple as possible, allowing for the least amount of friction in the event. That way, as you evolve messaging, you take it on simple and then you evolve it, just like any technology. And what we've found is researching the communication trends of your existing customers, they're already giving you free consulting. And when we work with our clients, we've learned to highly appreciate the value of, you know, trying to see through their eyes and look at that end user supported technology to make all friction less across the board. So let's blaze along here. So you may be asking yourself, what does change mean to me? What kind of reference point can I bring back to my team? Well, you know, when we were choosing these slides, we really tried to relate to a change that we're all familiar with. Like most, maybe not. I'm probably in the top left picture holding up a lighter, probably at some Aerosmith concert or something. The times have changed. Father time, and in this case tech time, defines where we are today. Change happens with or without you participating. How do you even know if your competition isn't already ahead of you and making those steps? Now let's, stop for a moment here and see. Let's take a quick poll. And this poll is just really to gauge where you are in the knowledge or in the journey of commercial messaging. So you have about 15 seconds, and please choose yes or no. Do you know you can even text enable your local and toll-free business lines? And just to give some feedback on this while time's ticking away, I would say that we've been doing this in the advanced side since 2007, when they first released text enablement of local numbers. Okay, great. So we're going to wrap up the results here. Great. So a lot of you already understand. That's a good starting point to the journey. So let's move on to some other stats that truly do confirm what you've just said. Everyone gets that texting is fast becoming the preferred communications method. And as you just exposed during this call, you also know that your numbers can be text enabled. So we all know that. Just think of how many times someone texts you before they call you or you call them. And that kind of change in that communications flow is very noticeable and something, again, to take note of. So knowing the stats and having personal experience doesn't make me an expert, right? So what would make me an expert, Noah? Well, that's where we come into understanding your journey. And understanding your journey means that you need to identify where you are. So, for example, you know that you can text enable numbers. That's one of the steps. It's a fantastic step to already have behind you. But what's next? What does that journey mean for you? And who's assisting you in that journey and taking the right steps? Whether you're one step ahead or many flights up. And that's what we do at Midori. We not only look at our clients' journeys, but their end customer journeys. So what do we say about that? Well, if we look at all technology, whether it's websites from back in the day or towns like the frontier compared to Rome, really identifying where you are in the journey determines what steps you take next. As we're all inundated with all this hype around AI and super intelligence, we tell our folks, think again. We look at AI as assisted intelligence, not artificial intelligence, and it's really not a one-size-fits-all solution. They're very specific and very siloed to certain use cases. So don't expect to get to there. In other words, don't expect to build Rome overnight. When you start and live in the frontier, start small. Take those baby steps necessary. And with that being said, let's take another polling question. So now that we know that you're aware that numbers can be text-enabled, have you text-enabled your local and toll-free numbers as of yet? Thank you so much for keeping your fingers limber. Okay. So it looks like a lot of people said yes, but if you calculate, half of the people basically said either no or I don't know. So that's an interesting step. So let's move on to what that could mean, and let's understand a little bit more about loyalty, because we'd be amiss without at least mentioning loyalty and how this impacts customer service, and does this channel work? And that really comes into every brand is made up of several components, and communications is clearly one of those foundational components that have direct and major impacts on your brands. In the last several years, consumers have just changed the way they want to communicate with business, and have you adjusted to that? Loyalty is so fast-moving that there's so many choices out there that if you don't provide the highest level of customer service, people move on. You snooze, they're gone. Because most of the time, that consumer doesn't complain. They're going to just move on because there's so many instant options available to them. So loyalty isn't like the days of the past. You have to match communication style to increase loyalty, and that's where messaging and automated bots come into play. So our research has indicated that when you provide that consistent, accurate customer service, you truly win the loyalty battle, and without it, you're done. So consumers have that instant access to your competition. They don't complain to you. So how do bots play into this, and where's the market, and how can we monetize them? Well, that comes into, well, first, understanding bots. Just to level set here, if you've used Alexa at home, or if you've used Siri, or just use your thumbs to interact with some chat experience, you may have already been communicating with bots, and so are your customers. So understand that bots are here, and they're here to stay. So consumers can ask questions, pay bills, order food, as you can see here, book appointments, all by interacting with a bot. And those bots can then connect to back-end systems to complete customer requests, similar to how websites function today. And most large companies have not just started that journey, they're so far along the way. Due to that, there's also been a flock of developers that have just migrated to this technology. So it really is rich enough to have deep support. And what Midori Interactive brings to the equation is that we are in the business of bots, but we're not in the business of just selling one bot solution. What makes us unique and different is that we empower a community of our customers that don't know or even care to know a lick of code. And what we allow them to do is create, customize, connect, communicate, and conduct business. We provide a place to share and promote their bot use cases within their communities and individual companies or divisions so that there can be repurpose of the same logic. It's all a creative session at that point. And that allows our customers to have access through simple tools, and it's an instant solution so that they can solve their end-user unique issues. Again, not a one-size-fits-all. And that defines our business model. So when we were creating bot templates, we also included a gamification strategy within the experience. Engaging user involvement in creation and deploying their own bot. So you'll see, Midori Interactive, when we talk about our goal is our customers' goals. We're there to develop new revenue streams, improve customer service, and apply new technologies to do that, just like chatbots do. So what we've done in there is really just deployed ready-to-attach use case bots that the consumer can deploy within minutes, and they could be customized and managed by non-coders, all through a simple web interface. And that instantly allows and enables businesses to communicate efficiently and effectively with the vast majority of customers who are already, as we all know, preferring texting over to phone calls or email. Or maybe that's the only way they do things. Certainly allows for a level of consistency that other methods don't necessarily cover. And the agility and versatility of the Midori communications platform, I'll get into a little bit later about, enables providers that serve multiple businesses to easily add chatbots to their offerings. And no other company that we know of has a telecom experience nor a carrier or enterprise model that enables those that we work with to monetize simple bots in a box and manage them to literally all of the business use cases without doing a lick of provisioning, billing, or support. So the question I have, can your customers benefit from bot power? And let's just take a typical example for a second here. Let's use a Joe the Plumber example. And Joe, let's give the backdrop here, Joe just wants to increase his revenue. And the only way that he's found a way to do that while staying competitive is to increase his customer base. But Joe finds himself always too busy answering common questions, booking appointments, the daily grind. So what does Joe do? Well, if he had a Midori access point through you, he could first walk through a self-onboarding process that validates his business line ownership for text enablement, text enable his own business number, choose a bot, protect it from being text enabled by his competitors, and launch it all within minutes, all without any level of coding. So then he can answer those common questions, book appointments, do marketing campaigns where that influx of response can be managed by an automated solution instead of him and his cell phone. It's truly a win-win-win solution. Joe wins when he spends less time in the routine, mundane communications, and more time building his business. His customers win because they can finally communicate with Joe in the way they prefer, text message, and always be consistent with the responses. And the last win is for the operator or the enterprise that supports that model, because now it's a new revenue stream that is clear, but a lot are still confused as to how to monetize. So Midori's communications platform is really simple to set up and sell, and it's only due to the complexity of the multi-tiered solution we built that allows for that. It allows an operator or what we call a super admin level to manage their entire cluster, which they can set up division subset, customer subset, give them roles as administrators over those subset roles, or assign basic or developer access to them. So we cover the gamut, let's say from Joe all the way up to someone who can take full advantage of the API set. And what this does is it allows that simple extension of multi-access roles right from that basic user all the way to the top. So what Joe sees is going to be far different than a super administrator or an admin sees. Joe just sees the bot that he's chosen, that he can customize, and that he can tell where the results of the conversations go, or have it handed off live to him via cell or email. And that's all easy to access through that simple portal. The businesses can then customize those chatbot conversations, have them up in minutes, and vary which ones they'd like to purchase from you. Maybe there's one for marketing. Maybe there's one for their booking of appointments and customer service. That all just means more revenue to you. Midori has also fully automated the onboarding, as I mentioned. LOA validation, text enablement if you folks needed it, or can attach to your own texting solutions, so it's agnostic to carrier. It supports its own billing, its own support of chatbots, and it all is without you forklifting your existing operation. So how does this how do we look at this communications platform being also a simple to use educational platform? Well, that's where we come into what we call the 5 C's. we allow folks to create, customize, connect, communicate, and conduct business. They can create based on a chatbot that exists, modify a template, create a new chatbot. They then customize that conversation to match the use case that they'd like. They can also modify their own instructions to their own teams based on that new template that they've created for their team. So it's not restrictive in any way. They then can communicate with other systems, connect to existing systems, to the webhook, on the back end, to CRMs, or maybe on the front end to a web chat experience. All coming into one central spot that's easy to communicate with customers 24/7. And that's allowing our folks to conduct business all the way from Joe the plumber all the way up to large business. So if you think of Midori's communications platform as the hub, and you'll see here that this we affectionately call the Star Wars slide, because it looks way more complex, but this gives you the understanding that simple is the most complex thing you could ever produce on the front end. So if you imagine that we're the hub, instead of even looking at all the data on here, just imagine that that's a hamburger. And all the features and functionality that we either have in the system or can add to the system, just think of those as condiments. So you build your own experience, and so do your end customers. And that's really special because some people just like ketchup. Maybe they just want something simple. Some people want it loaded. Having the access for both of those parties is really cool. So with all this AI, NLP, CRMs, Facebook stuff, this is all part of the solution that we can interact with specific needs to fill in the gap on a bot. So if you do need AI, for example, the onboarding bot that we created internally, that uses Watson AI in the experience. Not all bots have to have AI, but that gave it just a little bit of a flavor to it. And with our deep understanding of the telecom world and the chatbot world, we're providing expert guidance daily to our clients and helping them navigate the world of these types of messaging solutions. And some of your customers might want to run quickly through the path, but others want to set it and forget it and offer just an FAQ or a data point. So let's stop one more time here and talk about a quick note. One thing you have to take away from this is standing still is not a viable choice. Not taking ownership of texting is not a choice because your competition or future competition that may not be what you think it is today will rear its head and come after that business. So just look at your web presence as an example of how you can get into the industry quickly and use technology as a new channel and how it evolves over time. So planning, deploying, iteration. You look at your web presence, how many times have you already changed that experience for your customers? What little features did you add? How did you connect it to any back-end process? So don't be afraid to take your foot off of first base, or you'll never know what it means to steal second base. And that means be agile. So let's move on to a few polls, and this is going to move into the security section of our webinar. So how much do you think you're at risk with your local and toll-free numbers being hijacked? Okay, so we are in a good place here. There's a lot of people that think that there's a moderate risk. And I'm going to validate that statement because if something does happen, there's nothing you can really do except get the number back. So make sure you're aware of that. The FCC will do nothing at this time. So let's ask the next polling question. How important then, with that information that you're already somewhat familiar with, how important is it to protect those numbers, which basically is protecting your company's brand reputation and your customer's company's brand reputation? Okay, so we're going to close this one out. Okay, so at least we all agree that it's very important or critically important to protect your brand. We're on a level set now. We're making some progress. Okay, so I don't know what happened to my slides. There we go. Sorry about that. So let's talk about that, right? Let's go to security, and let's talk about what phone numbers have become to us in the society. They've really become our identifiers. If you think about it, your brand's reputation, if somebody spoofed your number in the voice world and emulated it out there and called folks, how dangerous of a problem could that be for you? Same thing with texting. What if somebody took your texting off of your voice line, which are in two separate ecosystems, and started to possibly use it for outbound texting, let's say? Well, let's hope it was for opted-in outbound texting, or you'd have a lot of explaining to do with your number to the TCPA violations that you might face, and you wouldn't even know it. Or what if somebody's receiving text coming into those numbers, in some cases some personal data, maybe some data that they shouldn't be sending, sensitive data, personal data. What if that's not in your hands to protect your customers or your customers' customers? And what we found is working with the industry and working within the studies that we've found and having real-world experience is just amazing. And that's where it comes into, just a quick story before we move on to the next slide, which is we were at, and we did send this out as a story, but we recently, in last fall, went out to the FCC as a competitive group, or a group of competitors, to try and make sure that there was some more stability in the messaging ecosystem. And in that process, trying to explain that there are some risks involved. A story came out, and it's documented within an ex parte within the FCC of that group. A counterpart of ours manages a large credit card company's communications. And when that credit card company went to text enable their number, it turned out it was already text enabled, and it took them 2 weeks to get that ownership right back. What could happen in 2 weeks with your phone numbers or your client's phone numbers? What would be the damage that could be caused by that? So this is where getting into an investment with our industry counterparts on adding security, it wasn't just needed, it was absolutely essential. And if we weren't going to get the help of the government, at least right now, in the way that we expect, then we need to do something about this ourselves at an industry level. And that's really where it came into, you don't want to be the credit card company that was found out that happened, right, that their number was taken. So don't find yourself in the news for the wrong reasons. especially if you had a way to prevent it. And that really comes into Text Protect. And the whole genesis of Text Protect was an ounce of prevention is really is better than a pound of cure, right? And that's where Text Protect comes in. We've been kicking around this concept for a few years at this point with our industry counterparts and trying to understand ways to protect the consumer, but also address management of services in the future, ownership and management. And what Text Protect does is it allows you to assign, it's self-managed. Midori has created the bot that allows a consumer the first step in managing their ownership and security of their business lines, whereas they can sign up for a 4 to 8-digit alphanumeric PIN, personal identification number, that they assign to their own number. And from that point on, those are stored into the registries that enable all messaging enablement, therefore protecting the number from being text-enabled before it was asked to be text-enabled, migrating the number when nobody gave authority to migrate a number, and finally to allow for a future foundational component to accelerate management of that number service. And what I mean by that is accelerated electronic portability. So this PIN can be added prior to even being text-enabled so that you can begin the journey with your end customers. You can educate them that they need to take ownership and that the technology exists, and then move them into your own products and solutions as part of your own journey with what you may sell to them today. And it also prevents those bad players from enabling the numbers and possibly responding to the messages that come in, maybe even for nefarious activity. And what we've learned from our clients is that no matter who or where you are in your own messaging journey, security is a required step you have to take. So that being said, working with some collaborative entities, we've been really closely working with user groups, with industry partners, with all those that can add value from the fraud angle, from the transport angle. And all of that knowledge has been combined to take this concept and adopt new ways that allow a stable, secure access to the messaging space. So even the most technological companies, as you can see, value their brand, and we're all taking steps to protect our numbers. And we're all believing behind the Text Protect solution. And this is where we always ask our either prospects or clients, are you taking those necessary steps? So when you're moving along in this journey, we would love to be that support arm and be that expert in this very difficult communications world than voice. Messaging is way different, and whether it's the now or even in the future, you need to be aware of how to deal with those technologies. So let's get a quick poll. What's your time frame for taking security measures to protect your phone numbers from hackers? This should be a quick one. Okay. Glad to hear it. To all those in purple being my favorite color here, we should talk. Very simple solution. Okay, so moving on. Do you think your business and customers would benefit from protecting their numbers with Text Protect? Okay, so moving on. Glad to know. Glad to know. And further education for those who don't know, let's hope that we can educate all that are involved in this wonderful ecosystem of messaging. And if it doesn't come directly from us, I'm sure it'll come from our counterparts out there in the industry. If you need further information on that, we could certainly work toward that. So let's just quickly go through what we've learned. The world has changed. The threat is real. I mean, every day in the news there's some kind of hacking or story of some relation to hacking. It's real. Doing nothing is not an option. We really need to all make steps to make sure that we evolve. And sometimes that's uncomfortable, but that means you're changing. Change is somewhat uncomfortable. The journey is a baby step journey. You can't expect to jump ahead like Buck Rogers kind of event. Take your time. Feel compelled to iterate because your customers are going to tell you what steps they're ready for as well. And that's where we say, let us guide you again through this. We'd love to have the opportunity to engage with you and also to craft a long-term plan together. With that being said, we'll have a personalized demo for anyone who would like to reach out to us. We'll provide that web link, and we've given a couple of different methods. I want to see. There it is. Sorry, I missed this slide with the contact. How silly is that? So we've given a couple of different ways for us to be reached. You can always send us an email at info@midori.ai. You can also go to our website, midori.ai, and scroll all the way to the bottom and engage in a chatbot that will capture information through web chat. Or you can text into that same chatbot by texting into this local number and just saying hello. So that being said, back to you, Maria, for questions.
Okay, thanks, Noah. Thanks, everyone, for keeping with us today. It was a lot of really great information. I was certainly engaged. What I'd like to do is open up for any questions that the audience may have. Please chat them in the Q&A box at the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. While we're waiting for that, we did have a couple of questions that came in earlier today that Noah, hopefully you can answer. First question is how long does it take to get going with Midori?
Great question. We're made to stand up in private label, so it usually takes longer to get through agreements, so less than a month with operators. It's just understanding if they need their own messaging connected to the system or if we're providing messaging. So less than a month.
Sure. That's really great. And what's the cost, give or take?
Well, the cost is really managed through one of two options that we have available. We do a lot of revenue share with organizations because we do full management of the solution, but we also license it, therefore the carrier customer can price it themselves.
Sure, okay. Another question coming in, how long does it take to build and deploy a bot?
Within our templates, you can have a bot deployed and attached to a phone number that's been text-enabled, probably about 30 seconds to a minute.
Nice. Okay, another one coming in. Well, you probably already answered this. How long does it take, actually you didn't, how long does it take to text enable a telephone number?
Well, through Midori, it depends if it's a local number or a toll-free. Toll-free is a little bit lengthier of a process at this point. That takes about 48 hours for approval, but local numbers can be done within 15 minutes with the appropriate paperwork provided.
Okay. And another question coming in, do the templates that you were talking about earlier, do they include other languages besides English?
Well, that's just a component of language translation. So depending on the area of the world would depend on which language engine you would like to use. But that's just a plugin. That would just be a plugin. That's like a filter that comes in. So let's say Spanish comes in the front door, translator hits it, feeds it into the engine responds, translator hits, and it's translated back into Spanish. So Spanish to English, English to Spanish.
Okay. And can that happen with other languages besides Spanish to English?
Absolutely. Again, this is part of the discussions we have with our clients. We engage to find out what they're really trying to do and where. I mean, there's been times that we've heard, we want this amount of dialects, number of dialects of this language in this area of the world. So again, it really comes into the specific requirements of the client.
Sure, okay. We have a question/comment dealing with chat portals and web portals. Can you talk about the differences between the two?
Okay, well, a chat portal is basically like like when you go to a website, you see a chat window pop up, right? That's when you have a web chat solution, and the web chat solution can either be tied to a live agent, or in the case of Midori, we can actually listen to that web chat window and respond with a bot that the entire company responds with, or maybe even a specific customized bot for that web chat window. And a portal is where you would manage the conversation the conversation that you want to have with your customer through the bot. That's where that user would manage their own experience and customize that conversation. And that's the portal.
Okay, great, thank you. Another question coming in, does Midori support MMS?
Yes, we support MMS over local numbers, and when toll-free numbers are stable with MMS, we'll clearly support that as well.
Okay, great. We have another question coming in about Text Protect, wanting to kind of dig in a little bit more on Text Protect and what layers of security it uses.
Okay. Well, Text Protect offers the ability for the end user to add that PIN to their number through a typical ownership validation process that exists today for folks, right? So typical like LOA or voice-powered LOA process, letter of authorization process. Once they add their PIN to the number and it's been validated that they're the owner of the number and it's not some restricted service, from that point, that PIN is stored within the registries that support text enablement, and therefore if someone tries to text enable it without the PIN, it will be rejected at that choke point at the registry level. If you lose your PIN, you would end up interacting through the Midori Text Protect bot that would allow you to access resetting your PIN and all that stuff. Or even in the future, text enabling will be easier to accomplish because now you don't, for example, we were just talking about toll-free numbers. That PIN could be the accelerator to text enabling once you do want to text enable. Right? You wouldn't have to wait that period of time because the security code is already on that number.
Okay. Another question.
And we don't store any of that information, by the way. We don't store the information. We're just the process that gets that information to the databases so that we're not the single point of access for hackers.
Okay, and that's good to know. So a couple of questions. One is dealing with cost, and I am going to assume that's around Text Protect. And the second one is, does Midori assign and manage the pins?
No, we don't assign. And the process, the automated bot process, would allow the owner of the service to self-manage their PIN.
Okay.
So we don't engage in the process of storing that information. We consider ourselves an out-of-band provider on this, meaning that should be held by a neutral party, that database, not by Midori. So we're just the process that allows that ease of use for folks to self-manage.
Sure. Okay.
And the cost of Text Protect, just to cover that question, the initial load cost of the Text Protect PIN is zero cost, including a registry fee, because it's a security-based solution that you're not really text enabling it yet, then there's no text enablement registry fee associated with it. So there is no cost to add the initial basic Text Protect.
Okay. We just have time for a couple of more questions. Thank you, everyone, again, for staying online and asking these really great questions of Noah. And again, thank you, Noah, for taking your time to speak today. Does Midori initiate outbound messaging?
No. In fact, we've chosen the path of not supporting an outbound initiated message because that can get your customers into trouble. Like if you're selling to Joe the plumber and he all of a sudden just loads his competitor's phone book in there or something, or customer list, you can get in trouble. And you as a carrier have to then prove yourself as a common carrier status, right, to dodge the TCPA violations, the Consumer Protection Act violations that are already defined around texting. So Midori supports interactive communications that's human-like in nature, so that it's safe to deploy and 100% TCPA compliant.
Okay, that's good to know. And the final question before we end today is, can Midori bots be connected to existing CRM instances or web chat experiences?
Yes. So you can either listen on the front end. So just imagine it, again, as a communications bridge. So if the front end is a listening post like a web chat that you have on your website, that can touch and the bot can listen to that channel. And if it is connected through webhook to expose transactional data from your own databases into the conversation, that would allow through webhook to pull that information from your CRM and feed it back into the conversation.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, again, Noah, I want to thank you for taking your time to talk today during our live webinar event. I want to thank everyone who joined us today. The replays of this live webinar will be available on the Telestax website within about 24 hours. For additional information on Midori or to get a free trial, Noah gave you several options to be able to do that. You can also contact the Rescom One Marketplace sales team, and you can do that through telestax.com. Again, thanks to everyone. Have a good day, and goodbye.